Welcome y'all to Robyn on the Farm. Today I'm going to show you how to make my ultimate sandwich bread recipe using the dough cycle on my bread machine. Now this bread is made with milk instead of water, so you're going to get an enriched dough, which means you're going to get a really good fine grain on this bread, and which is great for slicing. And you know that's so important for sandwich bread. So let's just get started. I'm going to show you how to make it using the dough cycle on your bread machine. To start out with, you want 1 1/4 cups warm milk. I just popped this into my microwave for 1 minute. So 1 1/4 cups warm milk. I'm gonna put all of this into my bread pan that goes with my bread machine. So just throw that all into your bread pan. 1 1/4 cups warm milk. Next, you want 2 tablespoons of oil. This is olive oil. You can use butter, you can use any kind of oil you want, but 2 tablespoons of oil. Throw that in there too. Next, we want bread flour. Now you can use all-purpose flour, but with sandwich bread, it's really important to use bread flour. You're just gonna get the best texture out of your bread. And I just think the texture in sandwich bread is super important. So you're gonna want a strong flour. Now that could be flour that has about 13% protein. But if you don't have that, just use your all-purpose flour and it's gonna be just fine. So 3 cups of flour, just put that on your wet ingredients that you have in there so far. Okay, and there we go. Next, you want 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now you can use 2 tablespoons of honey if you want. I like using honey, but sometimes sugar is just easier to deal with. So I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of sugar in this bread. Okay, now we want a teaspoon of salt. So just throw a teaspoon of salt right there on top of everything else. And next we're gonna put our yeast in here. So I make a little well with my finger in the ingredients. It's just like a little hole in the top of your ingredients. And you're gonna put 2 teaspoons of yeast in that little well. Doesn't matter that much to do that. That's how I learned to make bread in the bread machine, and I'm gonna just continue doing that. So 2 teaspoons of yeast right in that little well. This is my active dry yeast. You can also use instant yeast in this recipe, just the same. But this is my Red Star yeast. I really like this stuff. I've been using this for years. I just store it in my freezer, and then I get it out, use it, and put it back in my freezer. You don't have to let it defrost or thaw or anything like that. And those are all of our ingredients. There's only 6 ingredients in this bread, so it's super simple. Okay, so at this point, I am gonna put this bread pan back into my bread machine. So you're gonna choose the dough cycle on your bread machine, and you're gonna press start, and you're gonna just let it work. Now that the dough cycle is going, in just a few minutes, I'm gonna check on my dough. I'm gonna make sure that all the flour is incorporated from the sides of the bread pan, and just make sure everything's looking good. So I definitely recommend doing that. Don't just put everything in here, press dough cycle, and leave it. You gotta make sure your ingredients are incorporated, but that's just a few minutes into the cycle, and that's super easy. So I'll show you what it looks like in just a few minutes. All right, it's only been about 3 minutes. I'm just checking on my dough, just kind of working in the little bit of extra flour that's stuck on the sides, but it's really not bad. This is what you want your dough ball to look like just a few minutes into the kneading cycle. If your dough is sticking to the bottom or to the sides of this bread pan, then you want to add a little bit more flour, maybe 1/8 of a cup more just to start with. And you just want to get it to look just like this, because this is looking wonderful. All right, it's been 1 1/2 hours. My bread machine just beeped, so I know that the dough cycle is complete. So, yep, it is. Let's look at our dough. Look at that. This is what you want your dough to look like at the end of the dough cycle. It's falling fast. Okay, so next step is to get your dough out of your bread pan. Make sure that stays in there, or you get it out of your loaf of bread before you bake it. Okay, we're just gonna pat out our dough. It feels nice and soft. I can tell it's gonna be really, really, really good sandwich bread. So just pat it out, get all the little air bubbles out of it, and then you're just gonna shape it into a loaf. You can just roll it up in a log if you want to. I'm just gonna pull it down like this, kind of squish it out, pull the sides in, squish that out, and then continue to roll it into a loaf. That'll give you really good texture for your sandwich bread. All right, and there it is. Look at that, that was simple. Okay, this looks like a perfect little loaf of bread. Now I'm gonna throw this in my bread pan. This is my cast iron bread pan. I love this thing. This is what I totally recommend. I oiled it up really good. Now I'm just gonna throw this dough into my bread pan, just like that. I'm gonna check on this in about 30 minutes. It could take closer to 45 minutes, but I'm gonna check on it and see how it's looking in about 30 minutes. I'm gonna want it to just rise above the bread pan just a little bit. So far so good. All right, it's been 30 minutes and our dough has risen so nicely. Look at that. This is exactly what you want it to look like when it's time to put in the oven. So I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees and I'm gonna pop this in the oven for about 30 minutes. Look at that beautiful bread. It's been baking about 28 minutes and it looks done. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it out. So now I'm gonna rub some butter on top of this loaf. I just think that this just gives it a really soft, good texture, gives it a little hint of butter taste, and it's just so good. So this is an ugly way to do it, but it works, super simple. Just rub some butter all over the top of your loaf. Now I'm gonna turn this loaf out and let it cool on the wire rack just for a few minutes. Yep, just slid right out. Love the cast iron, just love it so much. Okay, check out this beautiful loaf. Oh, it is so soft. Oh, it's just gonna make such good sandwich bread. I'm gonna let this cool off for a little bit on this wire rack. To get the very, very, very best texture from your sandwich bread, you wanna let it cool completely before you slice into it. So I'm gonna wait as long as I can, but we'll see. All right, our bread has been cooling for about an hour. I'm gonna cut into it. I want you to be able to see the good texture of this bread. Oh yes, doesn't that look nice? Okay, I'm gonna cut some more. It's still a little bit warm, so really the longer I could let it sit, the better it's gonna be. But this is looking great. So here is our sandwich bread. This is amazing peanut butter and jelly sandwich bread, or turkey and avocado sandwiches, or ham and cheese sandwiches. That is what we're gonna have for lunch today. So, I mean, this bread is so good and soft and fluffy and pliable. I mean, it's amazing. And like I said, it's still a little bit warm. If I let it cool all the way, it would cut even better. But this stuff is great. Look at that. So if you're looking for a really great sandwich bread recipe, give this one a try. I will leave the recipe for this ultimate sandwich bread using the dough cycle on your bread machine down in the description so you can easily find it. I will see you next time.